Dear participants, I once again welcome you all to session 7 on the day 3 of this faculty development program. The lecture is entitled as Advancement in Sensing Techniques for Bioenergy Detection and it will be delivered by Ms. Soumya Srivastava. Ms. Soumya has completed her MSc from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and presently she is pursuing her PhD in biotechnology from Motilal Nehru National Institute of Technology, Allahabad. She has 8 publications in international journals and 5 book chapters. Her research interests are in cancer research, nanotechnology, synthesis and application of nanoparticles, nanomaterial characterization, biosensor development for disease diagnosis. I would request Ms. Soumya to proceed. Ma'am, please, over to you.
Thank you, Nahid. First of all, I would like to thank coordinator of this program, Professor Anjana Pandey ma'am, for giving me this opportunity, and I welcome all the participants. In this session, we will discuss about the different sensing techniques for the bioenergy detection. Bioenergy is a form of renewable energy which can be derived from the living organic materials, also called as the biomass. It can be used to produce the fuels for for transportation, for heat, electricity, and other products. An abundant source of bioenergy can make a country economically sound and more secure by generating the different types of jobs and by mainly by reducing the dependence on the foreign oil. Biofuels are classified into different generations based on their resources. The first generation involves the food-related sources which can be consumed, and the second generation involves the non-food sources, only the organic materials. And third generation involves the algal production of the bioenergy, and the fourth generation involves the microbial culture and the enzymatic reactions. There are mainly four key factors for the production of biofuels. First is the sustainability, which involves the use of environmental friendly and biodegradable material or the biomass. And second is the enhancement of the crops to produce the biomass and the biofuels. Third, by using the microbial and enzymatic methods for biomass breakdown during the conversion of the biomass to biofuels. And the fourth involves the metabolic engineering for production of biofuels. There are different sensing techniques. There are different sensing techniques for the analysis of the biofuels. Mainly three different techniques which are available currently. First is the spectroscopic techniques, chromatographic, and the biosensor based detections. Spectroscopy technique is it is the investigation and the measurement of the spectra, which is produced by the matter after interaction with the emitting electromagnetic radiation. Originally, spectroscopy was first defined as the study of interaction between the radiation and the matter as a function of wavelength. But now, spectroscopy is defined as the measurement of quantity as a function of wavelength or frequency. During a spectroscopy experiment, electromagnetic radiation of a specific wavelength range passes from a source through a sample containing the compound of interest or the analyte, resulting in the absorption or the emission. During the absorption, the sample absorbs the energy from the light source, and during the emission, the sample emits the light of a different wavelength than the source wavelength. Primarily in the electromagnetic spectrum, spectroscopy is a fundamental exploratory tool for in the field of physics, chemistry, and astronomy, which allows the characterization of the physical structure and composition of the matters. Different in the Spectroscopy instrument, different components are involved. First is as a light source, the which is the samples compounds are excited by the electromagnetic radiation, which is provided by a light source. Their samples molecules absorb the energy from the electromagnetic radiation, and it gets excited, jump from a lower energy ground state to higher energy state of excitation. And a detector, which is usually a photodiode on the opposite side of the sample, records the sample's absorption of wavelengths and determines the extent of their absorption. Second part is the monochromator, which is structurally similar to the spectrometer, but it provides a much smaller window of data. A monochromator captures one measurement in the UV visible spectrum at a particular wavelength, and it also captures the entire UV visible spectrum in the same amount of time and provides the values for each wavelength. Third important component of the spectroscopy instrument is the radiometer or the detector, which is used to measure the light in the UV visible UVA, B, or C spectra. It consists of a meter body that measures the current voltage from an internal or the external detector. A sensor, which is usually a photodiode, is used to measure a specific band of light, and the filters are added to the sensor to block the wavelengths. Generally, the radiometric sensors are calibrated at the desired peak intensity and measure all the light under the curve to generate a single reading. Application of the spectroscopy involves for the determination of the atomic structure of a sample, for characterization of different types of biomolecules, and to determine the metabolic structure of a muscle, or respiratory gas analysis in hospitals, etc. There are different types of spectroscopy techniques. First is the infrared, nuclear magnetic resonance, ICP spectroscopy, and the mass spectrometry. Infrared spectroscopy exploits the fact that the molecules absorb the specific frequencies that are the characteristics of their structure. These absorptions are resonant frequencies. That is, the frequency of the absorbed radiation matches the frequency of the group that vibrates. It it is the different types of the infrared spectroscopy are there. There's like Fourier transform of infrared spectroscopy, also called as in the short form FTIR. It is a preferred method of infrared spectroscopy where the IR radiation is passed through a sample and the radiation is absorbed and passes through it. It's transmitted. The resulting signal at the detector is the spectrum which represents the molecular fingerprint of the sample. The general FTIR spectra we get, and it reveals the composition of the solid, liquid, and the gases. The most common use in the identification of unknown materials and confirmation of the producing materials. FTIR is generally used to verify the quality of the materials such as biofuels, for the analysis of the thin films and the coating, microanalysis of the small sections of the materials, for identification of the contaminants, and the deformulation of polymers and the rubbers. Second is the nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, which is a physical phenomena in which the nuclei in a strong constant magnetic field are perturbed by a weak oscillating magnetic field, and they respond by producing an electromagnetic signal with the frequency characteristic of that magnetic field of the nucleus. This whole process occurs near the resonance, where the oscillation frequency matches the intrinsic frequency of the nuclei. Uh, the principle behind NMR is that many nuclei have spin and all the nuclei are electrically charged. If an external magnetic field is applied, an energy transfer is possible between the base energy to a higher energy level. The energy transfer that takes place at a wavelength that corresponds to the radio frequencies. And when the spin returns to its ground level, energy is emitted at the same frequency. The signal that matches this transfer is measured in many ways and processed in order to yield an NMR spectrum for the nucleus concerned. It works, NMR, working principle of NMR involves the sample is placed in a magnetic field and the NMR signal is produced by the excitation of the nuclei sample with radio waves into nuclear magnetic resonance. The intramolecular magnetic field around an atom in a molecule changes the resonance frequency, which gives the details of the electronic structure of the molecule. As the fields are unique or highly characteristic to individual compound, NMR is definitely is a definitive method for the identification of monomolecular organic compounds. There are different applications of the NMR spectroscopy, which involves the analysis of the molecular structure of the chemicals, molecular weight, identification of the molecular weight, for the analysis of the different mixture of compounds, and for identification of the interatomic distance, and for also for the molecular dynamics study. Third spectroscopy method is a mass spectroscopy, which is used to measure the mass to charge ratio of ions. The results after the mass spectroscopy are represented as a mass spectra, which is a plot of intensity as a function of the mass to charge ratio. It is used in many different fields and applied to pure samples as well as the complex mixture. It is a plot of the ion signal as a function of the mass to charge ratio. In a typical MS procedure, a sample, which may be solid or the liquid or the gaseous, is ionized. For example, by bombarding it with a beam of electrons. This may cause some of the sample's molecule to break up into positively charged fragments, or simply they become positively charged without fragmenting. These ions are then separated according to their mass to charge ratio. The ions are detected by a mechanism capable of detecting the charged particles, such as an electron multiplier system. And the results are displayed as a spectra of the signal intensity of the detected ions as a function of the mass to charge ratio. The atoms or the molecules in the sample through the mass spectrometry can be identified by correlating the known masses to the identified masses, or a characteristic fragmentation pattern. Different applications of the mass spectroscopy are there, which involves the detection of the end products of the reaction for the proteomics analysis. For in the environment, it can be used for the drinking water testing or the pesticide screening, soil contamination, and pollution monitoring, for drug discovery and the absorption. It is also used for the forensic analysis for trace evidences, etc. And it has also the clinical applications. Fourth is the inductively coupled plasma spectroscopy. It is an analytical method which is used to detect and measure the elements to analyze the chemical samples. This process is based on the ionization of a sample by an extremely hot plasma, which is usually made from the argon gas. A gas flow is passed through the middle of the plasma, which creates a channel, and it is colder than the adjacent plasma, but warmer than the chemical flame. And the samples that has to be tested are released into this central channel. To optimize the plasma temperature, test efficiency, and its stability, the sample which is introduced in the central conduct should have a little liquid as possible, and it should have a consistent droplet size. ICP is one of the method of optical emission spectroscopy. spectrometry. It has one method of optical emission spectrometry. When plasma energy is given to an analysis sample from outside, the component atoms are excited. And when the excited atoms return to lower energy position, the emission rays are released. And the emission rays that correspond to the photon wavelength, it is measured. The element type is determined based on their position of the photon rays, and the content of each element is determined based on the rays intensity. To generate the plasma, first argon gas is supplied to torch coil and high frequency electric current is applied to work coil at the tip of the torch tube. Using the electromagnetic field created in the torch tube by the high frequency current, argon gas is ionized and plasma is generated. This plasma has high electron density and the temperature, and this energy is used in the excitation or emission of the sample, and the solution samples are introduced into the plasma in an atomized state through the narrow tube in the center of the torch tube. Another method of ICP is mass spectrometry, which consists of an ion source, a sample interface, ion lens, and a mass spectrometer and a detector. The ion source is an ideal ionization source for mass spectrometry and can ionize over 90% of many elements. Ions produced in the ICP are led through the sampling interface to the mass analysis units. The sampling interface unit consists of two metallic cones, the sampling cone and the skimmer cone. The sampling cone and the skimmer cone. And the rotary gear pumps ventilates between the two into several hundred PA conditions. The path of the ions pulled through by the sampling cone and the skimmer cone converge into the mass spectrometry through the ion lens. The ion lens and the mass spectrometer unit are ventilated to 10 power minus 3 to 10 power minus 4 Pascal respectively by the turbomolecular pump. There are different applications of the ICP in detection of the biofuels. It also assesses the purity of the biofuels. It can be also used for in the medical purpose and the trace element analysis. That comes the chromatography technique. Gas chromatography is mainly people are using for the biofuel detection. It is a technique used for the separation of the volatile substances, and it suggests that the separation of components of a mixture in the gaseous state could be achieved using a gaseous mobile phase. Different types of the gas chromatography: gas solid chromatography and gas liquid chromatography. In the gas solid chromatography, the stationary phase is solid. It is the affinity of the solutes toward the adsorption onto the stationary phase which determines its retention time. And the mobile phase is of course a suitable carrier gas. And in the gas liquid chromatography, the stationary phase is a liquid with very low volatility, while the mobile phase is a suitable carrier gas. This is an instrumentation of gas chromatography. The carrier gas is converted to the flow controller, followed by the rotameter and the sample injector. The sample injector is the place where we inject our sample with the help of syringe, and it is connected to the column where the separation of solute takes place, followed by its connection with detector, which records the data related to incoming solutes and then sends data to recorder or the computer system. Different detection systems are there in the gas chromatography. Each detector has its own characteristic and feature, as well as they have also some drawbacks. An ideal detector it should include the high sensitivity, minimum drift, wide dynamic range, operational temperature up to 400 degrees Celsius, fast response time, same response factor, good reliability. It should be of non-destructive in nature, and it should respond to all the solutes. There are different types of gas chromatography detectors, and they should have different characteristics. It must be non-selective. It must be it is of non-selective type. It is of selective type. In the non-selective detector, they respond to all compounds present in the carrier gas, and while the selective ones respond to range of only a specific range of compounds. Specific detectors respond to a single specific compound only, and these type of detectors can also be grouped into concentration or mass flow detectors. Concentration dependent detectors respond in the gas chromatography proportional to the concentration of the solute in the detector, such as TCD. And the mass flow dependent in the mass flow, the signal is dependent on the rate at which the molecules enter the detector, such as the FID. Many two types of detectors are there. First is the thermal conductivity detector, which measures the changes of the thermal conductivity due to the sample size, and it is non-destructive universal detector. Its response depends on the thermal conductivity, which is having difference between the carrier gas and the eluted components. It has wide dynamic range, and it responds also to inorganic gases such as carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. Sample is not tested in thermal conductivity detector, and it is easy to operate. Thermal conductivity detector changes with temperature, hence associated current changes due to change in thermal conductivity, which is ultimately reflected in the form of peaks on the chromatogram. Flame ionization detector is destructive in nature, and it is most widely used detector in gas chromatography. The effluent from the column is mixed with hydrogen and air and ignited. The organic compounds burning in the flame produces the ions and electrons, which can conduct the electricity through the flame. A large electric potential is applied at the burner tip, and the ions collected on the collector on the electrode and were recorded on the recorder. It has a large linear dynamic range. After applying flame for burning of the sample, a constant potential is applied across the detector. When the solid molecules are burned by the flame, there is change in the ionic strength inside the setup, resulting in the change in the potential associated to the cathode, which is reflected in the form of peaks. And there is the electron capture detector, which ionizes the carrier gas by means of radioactive sources. Potential across the two electrodes is adjusted to collect all the ions and the steady saturation current, and is therefore recorded. And in the ionization detector, ionization strength changes when the solute comes in, and mobile strength of mobile phase converted into electrical signal inside the detector. Another detector is the argon ionization detector, which depends on the excitation of argon atoms to a metastable state by using the radioactive energy. There are different parameters are involved in the gas chromatography analysis. First is the retention time, which is the difference between the point of injection and the appearance of the peak maximum. It is measured in minutes or the second. Actually, it is the time required for 50% of a component to be eluted from a column. Retention volume is another important parameter, which is the volume of the carrier gas, which is required to elute 50% of the component from the column. Separation factor is the ratio of partition coefficient of the two components to be separated. If more difference in the partition coefficient between the two compounds are there, the peaks are far apart and S is more. If partition coefficient of two compounds are similar, then the peaks will be closer. Resolution of any in the analysis parameter defines about the separation of the two consecutive peaks on a chromatogram, and it is a measure of both column and the solvent efficiencies. This is a general chromatogram which is obtained in the gas chromatography instrument. In the chromatography experiment, in the chromatogram, the number of components in a sample is determined by the number of peaks, and the amount of a given component in a sample is determined by the area under the peak. And the third is the identity of the components is determined by the given retention times. High performance liquid chromatography is another important chromatography technique which is based on the distribution of the analyte between a mobile and the stationary phase. Depending on the chemical structure of the analyte, the molecules are retarded while passing the stationary phase. The specific intermolecular interactions between the molecules of a sample and the packing material define their time on column. Hence, different constituents of a sample are eluted at different times. Thereby, the separation of the sample ingredients is achieved. In the HPLC instrument, a detection unit recognizes the analytes after leaving the column, and the signals are converted and recorded by the data management system. After passing the detector unit, the mobile phase can be subjected to additional detector units, a fraction collector unit, or in general, HPLC system contains a solvent reservoir, a pump, an injection valve, a column, a detector unit, and a data processing unit, as shown in this figure. The solvent is delivered by the pump at high pressure and the constant speed through the system. To keep the drift and noise of the detector signal as low as possible, a constant and pulseless flow from the pump is crucial, and the analyte is provided to the eluent by the injection valve. There are different applications of the chromatography in the biofuel analysis. First is it is coupled to uh, it provides the chemical profiling or information of the biofuels, which aims to correct the destination as fuel or in the chemical industry. Chromatography techniques can provide information about the quantification of the biofuels with their separation from the reaction end products, which provides the information about the purity of the biofuel under study. HPLC has been widely used to study the production of biodiesel and its blend in different studies. The next important technique involved in the bioenergy detection in sensing detection method is use of biosensors. Biosensor is an analytical device which is used for the detection of an analyte by combining the biological component with a physicochemical detector. It is a it's a sensing portable device, and a specific biological element recognizes a specific analyte, and the changes in the biomolecule are usually converted into an electrical or optical or thermal signals by a transducer. It detects and records and transmits the information regarding a physiological change or the processes. In the general biosensor structure, the enzyme, antibody, or any analyte is connected to the biorecognition element. It is recognized by the biorecognition element, and their interaction is identified by the transducer element and converted into electrical signal or the heat signal or the optical signal, depending on the transducer type. There are different characteristics of biosensor. First is its selectivity, which is the most important feature of this biosensor. Selectivity means that the biosensor detects a certain analyte without reacting to contaminants or other non-specific materials. Um, Antigen antibody interaction shows the maximum selectivity, being because it is analyte specific. Second is its precision. It is another characteristic of a device for quantitative measurement, and it is characterized as standard deviation of the measurements. A good biosensor should represent the signal drift under stable conditions, resulting in an error in the measurement. It influences the sensor precision, so it is considered an important characteristic of biosensor for the continuous monitoring. Another important feature of the biosensor is its sensitivity, which represents the minimal amount of a substance that can be analyzed. It should have a it should have a range of analyte concentration for which the it by, so that it can be reliably used, and the working range of the sensor should be in limits with the possible concentration of analyte used during the assay. It should have a wide linear range, so for which so that the biosensor response varies linearly with the concentration, and the time required to analyze an analyte is known as the response time, which is a very important factor in the case of biosensor. And the regeneration time means the time required by the sensor to return to the initial state after its interaction with the sample. It is considerable in characterizing the biosensor, and the biosensor can be used for the numerous phases, and the biological material degradation is unavoidable and has to be replaced. The background signal, it should be have a low noise with ability for correction, and it has should have the minimizing platelet interact for platelet interaction, mm, activation of the complement when in direct contact with the bloodstream. There are different biosensor recognition elements like nucleic acids, cells, antibodies, aptamers, and the enzymes. Depending on the transducer type, different types of biosensors are available, like optical, calorimetric, electrochemical, thermometric, and the piezoelectric. The optical biosensors are the devices that utilize the principle of the optical measurements like absorbance, fluorescence, and the chemiluminescence, etc. They employ the use of fiber optics and optoelectronic transducers. The word optrode represents a condensation of the words optical and electrode. Optical biosensors primarily involve the enzymes and antibodies as the transducing elements. It allows a safe, non-electrical remote sensing of the materials, which is another advantage. And as some of the important um, optical biosensor, there are mainly two types of optical biosensor are there: conventional optical biosensor, and MEF involves the metal enhancement fluorescence signals to enhance the biosensing property of the optical biosensors. Biological reactions are associated with the production of the heat, and this forms the thermometric biosensor. They are mainly more commonly referred to as the thermal or the calorimetric biosensor. This is a diagrammatic presentation of the thermometric biosensor. It consists of a heat insulated box fitted with the heat exchanger. Another one is the piezoelectric biosensor, in which a piezoelectric material is used, which exhibits a mechanical oscillation under an alternating current voltage, which produces an oscillating electric field. When a mass increases due to interaction between the molecules, the frequency controlled by the AC voltage decreases. Mass response time type piezoelectric sensors are commonly used for virus detection. And here the schematic illustration of the operational principle of the piezoelectric biosensor is shown. The upper and the lower electrodes derive the resonation of the piezoelectric material. Target antigen or target analyte binds with the probe, and the mass change on the electrode surface leads to a time-dependent frequency shift that is represented by the frequency change of the material in the oscillation circuit, and it is measured. Next is the electrochemical biosensor, which operate by reacting with the analyte or the sample to produce an electric signal proportional to the concentration of the analyte. The working principle of the electrochemical sensor is based on the measurement of the electrochemical changes occurring on the sensor surface of the electrode after interaction with the analyte. Based on the electric signals, it is divided into potentiometric, amperometric, or the conductometric sensors. Potentiometric biosensors measure the change in the well voltage, and while in the amperometry, change in the current at fixed voltage is measured, while the measurement of change in charge due to sensing material is conductometry. Gas, if there are different gas sensors are there, it is a device which detects the presence or concentration of gases in the atmosphere. Based on the concentration of the gas, the sensor produces a corresponding potential difference by changing the resistance of the material inside the sensor, and it can be measured as output voltage. And based on this output voltage value, the type and concentration of the gas can be estimated. The type of the gas and the sensor could detect depends on the sensing material present inside the sensor. Normally, these sensors are available as modules with the comparators. These comparators can be set for a particular threshold value of gas concentration. When the concentration of the gas exceeds this threshold, the digital pin goes high. The analog pin can be used to measure the concentration of the gas. The ability of a gas sensor to detect the gases depends on the chemiresistor to conduct the current. The most commonly used chemiresistor is tin oxide, which is an N-type semiconductor and that has free electrons. Normally, the atmosphere will contain more oxygen than the combustible gases, and the oxygen particles attract the free electrons present in the tin oxide chemiresistor, which pushes them to the surface of the SnO2. As there are no free electrons, available output current will be zero. There are different types of hydrogen gas sensors available. Optical fiber hydrogen sensors, nanoparticle based hydrogen microsensors, and the diode based sensors. Mostly palladium is used to detect the hydrogen because it selectively absorbs the hydrogen gas and forms the chemical palladium hydride. Bihydrogen can be measured through the gas sensor, and there is a recent progress in developing the microelectromechanical systems based hydrogen gas sensor, which couple the novel thin films as the active layer with the MEMS structure, which is known as the also called as the micro hot plate. This coupling results in a hydrogen gas sensor that has several unique advantages in terms of speed, sensitivity, stability, and amenability to large scale manufacture. This technology has been found to have substantial potential for meeting the sensing requirements of a hydrogen-based energy economy. With this, I will conclude this session. If you have any query, you can ask. Over to Nahid.
Thank you, Ms. Soumya, for providing us insight about the techniques regarding bioenergy detection. Uh, I guess Mohammad Farman wants to add something. Mohammad Farman, please go ahead. Mohammad Farman, you want to ask anything? Any other participants? Yes, Shweta Kulshresht, please go ahead.
Hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
I'm Dr. Shweta Kusresh from MIT University, Rajasthan. So it was very good to hear about the Soumya Srivastav's presentation that is on bioenergy detection. It is very nicely presented, but I have few queries because I am not of this background. So I have few queries related to the biosensor, what you are talking about, piezoelectric biosensor and electrochemical biosensor. I would like to know the difference between these, and second thing, because difference is not clear to me. And second thing, what is the basis of selection? In what condition we can go for piezoelectric biosensor, and in what condition we can go for electrochemical biosensor? So what is the basis of selection if we are working on some idea then, like producing bioenergy, then what could be the criteria of selection? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
ఆయన కలుగుతాను ఇప్పుడు ఆయన దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళబోయే ముందు ఒకసారి తింటాక మనకు ఒక ఐడియా ఉంటే తెలుసుకుని వెళ్ళాం అనుకుంటాం.
Hello, Nahid. Am I audible?
వెళ్ళబోయే ముందు మనకు ఒక మాట
Yes,
Yes,
yes, you
ma'am.
are audible.
కొంచెం వెళ్ళినా
Okay.
మన
First
ఆయన
question was
ఒక
what is the
ప్రాక్టీస్
difference
బాగా
between the
నేను
piezoelectric and the electrochemical, right?
Yeah.
Actually, piezoelectric biosensor is mass dependent, and in the piezoelectric frequency change is measured. Okay.
Okay.
While the electrochemical signal, you measure the electrical changes in the form of electrical signal. Okay. And the second thing was the what is the criteria for the selection?
Yeah.
What was the second question?
What is the basis of selection? In what condition we should go for piezoelectric? Means, is there any example that if you'd like to detect something related to the bioenergy, then what could be the criteria of whether we should go for piezoelectric and can go for electrochemical?
Actually, if you want to go for the low sensitivity, then
Yeah.
you will opt for the electrochemical signal, because in
Yeah.
the piezoelectric biosensors, we go for the mass deposition, so there
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
be the sensitivity of the piezoelectric sensor is high in comparison to electrochemical biosensors.
Okay. Suppose
So this
if we are producing biogas and if we are producing bioethanol, right? Both are bioenergy related things. So in what case we have to use piezoelectric and electrochemical?
biogas
Because
will be measured in the case of biogas and the bioethanol. Biogas will be measured through the electrochemical signal.
okay. And
Yes. And bioethanol should be measured in if you compare those
yeah,
biogas and the bioethanol actually.
yeah.
Then in the case of biogas, you will go through the electrochemical biosensors, and in the case of bioethanol, you will opt for the piezoelectric sensors.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Soumya. It is
Thank
very nicely presented.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And it was very
Thank you,
nicely
Shweta.
solved. You have solved my queries.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Any other participant? Dr. Abhi Sarika, please go ahead.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Dr. Abhisarika from Dr. Shakuntala Mishra University, Lucknow. Ma'am, Soumya ma'am, very nice presentation and very brief, I could say that. And I have a little small query as these the techniques you are discussed here, as these are some of the techniques require some sample preparement before any analysis. So, as in biosamples, if any sample preparation would be done, does that cause any unanalyzement of the any molecules, or if we are analyzing some particular material or not? Uh, am I audible or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Uh,
So,
so, ma'am,
Soumya
did
ma'am,
you
are you
listen?
there?
Did you?
Actually,
Wait
sample
a
has to
second.
be prepared like that. It has the minimal degradation. So there will be no impact on the sample preparation. So on the analysis after
Ma'am,
the sample preparation, it
ma'am,
should not be
if we are
degraded.
analyzing particular material, okay,
Yeah,
ma'am, but
if you are
some of the
analyzing
techniques are destructive. Yeah. Okay, ma'am. And one thing is that because some of the techniques are destructive in it. So if we are analyzing particular material or particular, if we are analyzing organic compounds or compounds, so would be it will be analyzed through these of the techniques, or we could require some of means we have to go for 1, 2, 3 techniques for complete analysis of a sample in
and
biological compounds,
preparatory
not in.
techniques are different from the analytical techniques. Okay, here
Yeah.
we have discussed about the analytical techniques only. Preparatory techniques are different from the analytical techniques.
Okay. Thank you,
Yes.
ma'am. Thank you.
Hope the question is done. Any other participant? You may please go ahead. Ma'am is there to answer your query. Participant, you want to ask anything? So I guess we are done for this session, and if there is no query, then we are closing for now, and our next session starts at 2:30 p.m. Kindly join 10 minutes before, and I would like to thank Soumya Srivastava for such a nice presentation.
Thank you, Nahid. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, you can leave. Participants, you can leave and join at 2:20 for our next session.